Yo, what's good? This is Dylan from Producergrind. Welcome to another episode of the Producergrind Podcast. Special shout out to the cameraman, Cook It Up KO in the back. We got my boy Letter L in the building. What's good with you, bro?
Yo, what up, man? What's going on?
Chilling, man. Chill. You know, we just working.
You know, podcast is turning into my favorite day of the week, bro. I was kind of geek coming up here, kind of knowing what we was getting into today, man. You know, I did a lot of work up at Patchwerk last summer, especially with this 411 Music Academy program, which we'll get into later. But our guest, man, the first time I heard his name, I was doing a producer event, I think back in 2016, before I had moved to Atlanta. And it's kind of one of those things, man. One thing you need to understand about this game is the better you are, the more your reputation is going to precede you. So it was a dude named Kangaroo, a producer from Tennessee. He was like, yo, you need to go over to Patchwerk. You need to holler at my man Stafa, right? So then, you know, I was working in Chicago, you know, with a couple artists. One of the managers of the artists I was working with, he was like, yo, you need to holler at Stafa when you get to Atlanta. So this is twice now I've heard this guy's name. So lo and behold, same artist manager, I'm doing this program with these kids in the summer over at Patchwerk. We arrive in the studio. Who's our Engineer Stafa, man? So real quick, I just want to shout out before we get into it, man. I just want to shout out his accomplishments, man. One of the best engineers in the city of Atlanta, really. He's anchored over at Patchwerk. He's engineered for Young Thug, T.I., Gucci Mane, Future, Migos, Waka Flocka, Kid Ink, and Jeezy, also with the 2 Grammy nominations, y'all. Welcome, Stafa, Engineer Stafa, to the building, man.
What's happening?
What's going on, man? Appreciate you.
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you pulling up, man. So we glad to have you in the building, man. Thank you for joining us. And I know Dylan had a couple questions he wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, definitely.
Get into it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I got a pretty strong background in engineering. Engineering was always like my hustle, you know what I mean? Like, you know, pulling up on people with the laptop and the mic.
Yeah.
I had a studio before, you know what I mean? Like I was living in it for 3 months, believe it or not. No shower, don't do that shit. It was a crazy situation. That's a whole other podcast. But now, so the entrepreneurship, have you ever owned like a studio yourself? Like even if it was just a little?
When I was starting out, as I was going to school, I would buy the equipment as I learned about it. I seen everybody were using Macs, was the format of what we were using on to be taught off of. So I would go and buy the equipment as we learn about it. Mm-hmm. So as I was buying the equipment, I was an artist. I was more so an artist at the time, and I was really just trying to figure out how to way to make my sound better. And as I grew in my schooling, I had a couple other classmates that would come to my house and we record, and I'd give you like a 2-day turnaround to give you your song back, and that kind of like how it started out. So I was just working out of my house, just trying to make my sound better, and other people, as they heard my sound, would gravitate towards me, and that's how I kind of got started.
What were you charging back then?
Oh shit, man, we charging like $15. $15, give you 48 hours, I'd turn it back to you. I even had it where I had a pretty good trustworthy clientele, so I'd leave a CD in my mailbox if I wouldn't be home, and they'd leave the cash, and it's kind of like
that's
how we
what's
did.
up. That's the hustle right there.
For sure.
Where'd you go to school at?
I went to GTCC out of Highpoint, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't do the full sale route. I didn't feel comfortable leaving school with all that type of debt, so I walked out clean.
So GTCC, that's a recording school or just like a?
Yeah, it's a community college out of North Carolina, but they have a program for audio engineering, sound reinforcement.
That's what's up.
And you have to take a major in entertainment technology to get into it. But yeah, shout out to the teachers and all the students back there.
That's what's up.
Now, what are like, you know, well, first of all, you ever did an internship like for a studio?
Mm-hmm. Patchwerk was my first and only internship. Luckily, how I did in school, I was able to leave state. The two options we had, we could go to Tennessee, somewhere in Nashville to work, or either some local church doing sound. And a lot of the music I was currently working on was hip hop anyway, or hip hop based. Mm-hmm. And Atlanta seemed to be the no-brainer as far as location and the artists that were coming out. So I said, let me try my internship at Patchwerk, and they accepted me and moved on down to Atlanta as soon as they said I could come, and started getting coffee and donuts and whatever I had to do to get there.
Can you talk about that early internship life? Listen, I get around the city. I've been to a number of studios, and one thing that's a topic right now is what is being asked of interns, right? I've heard some stories. I've heard, frankly, some horror stories, and I've heard some stories. Well, no, that sounds about right. They should be asking you to do that. So can you talk about your experience and kind of how that compares to what people might be expecting now coming out of school?
I think you learn a lot about a person's character when you ask them to do things that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And anybody that tells you that they loved interning is telling you a lie, because it's a lot of things that it teaches you to pay attention to detail. A lot of times, if you can't get a food order right, and we have gear that costs excess of $1.5 million, if we can't expect you to follow details, as far as getting a food order right, how can we trust you on this gear? That's kind of like the concept behind it. Also, when I moved to Atlanta, my teachers pretty much prepared me for it. They're very straightforward with our class. They told us that it'll be very hard to not only find an internship that you want to do, but find one in a studio that's active in the industry. And so my whole mind frame was when I got to Patchwerk was that I'm gonna learn as much information as I can so that I can be efficient in any studio that I go to. And just so happens, within 6 months of me being there, they asked me if I wanted to stay.
That was your next question. How long were you there?
Yeah, but that's not saying that you have 6 months and it happens. There were guys there that interned all the way up from a year and a half to longer, just depending on your initiative that you take when you're there. We even had the guy that hired me. They would set up little tests. They would tear up a little piece of paper and see who would get the piece of paper. And
just watch on the camera.
Yeah, to just see and say who went far and beyond, who paid attention. And I try to treat the studio like it was mine. And so yeah, when you look for an internship, a lot of times we want you to be a fly on the wall. When you go in there, try not to be all over the engineer's shoulder, but pay attention to what they're doing, because you never know when it's your turn to sit in that seat.
Word.
And that happens overnight. My first start was with YC. He did Racks on Racks. I didn't record that record, but this was right off of the fame of that record. And something happened where they couldn't get an engineer to be available for the session, and I was an intern on staff at the time. And I volunteered. I was like, I'll do it. Didn't know if I could or couldn't, but I was like, hey, I'll do it. And we did 15 hours, and he slept for most of them, but that showed that I had initiative, and I started getting other sessions, and just knowing that the people that are there to help you, and try to use your colleagues also as springboards to work as well. Because I sat behind two engineers, D. Brown, he worked on Mad City for Kendrick Lamar. I think he got a Grammy nomination for that. And then I had Luther. Luther was my other, I guess, engineer above me that I was using as a guide. So I took little things from them, and really sitting behind D and Luther, I was able to see that if I was put in this seat, I need to be able to be just as efficient as they are to not look bad. So I made sure I seen that D was real fast with shortcuts and everything, and Luther was real organized with file management. So I tried to take those things and make sure they didn't slow me down when I was working. So there's little things you pick up.
What are some of your tips to interns on how to not get taken advantage of, and how to just make the most out of your situation?
I say just it goes with normal life. Just be a man, be a woman when you're working. Try not to bring any problems you have from home to the studio. Just know you're there as customer service that you're selling more than studio time. And with music, it's very vibe based. So you making the wrong comment, talking too loud, any things like that. Just knowing to take a trash bag outside of the room before you empty it. Little things like that can mess up a vibe or bring attention to you. Try not to do those things.
It's funny. We were just talking about that earlier, how easy it is to get comfortable somewhere. before you kind of understand the dynamic, just reading the vibe and reading the room.
Definitely.
I also want to remind, if you are live, and I know we're not live, but if you on the Producergrind live feed and you want to ask a question of Stafa, because he's a great resource right now, go ahead and throw your questions in there, and we'll get to him.
I'm about to start the live out in a second right now.
Okay.
Now, what advice would you give, for networking and relationship building for, starting entrepreneurs, starting engineers and entrepreneurs, I guess?
What I did a lot, I went to a lot of open mics when I was interning. I try to be almost a Patchwerk representative for them, although they didn't ask me to. So I had, I'd go out with business cards and T-shirts and letting you know that I was a new engineer, but you could come get me and we get some work done at Patchwerk. And then just making sure you know everybody in the room when you walk in the room. Introduce yourself, because you never know who that guy in the corner could be next. He could be the next artist, and we're just looking for somebody to have a basis or a conversation, or just have somebody take insight in them. So just make sure you introduce yourself to everybody in the room, and as far as networking, go as many open mics, as many open houses at studios you can get to.
And now I notice I'd say most engineers are kind of introverted. Mm-hmm. Would you say that? Would you say you're introverted yourself?
To a degree, but I think even on the scale of introvert engineers, I'm kind of out of the box on that. I'm very active on my social media, Stafa_13.
That's a great follow, by the way. Please follow. It's a great follow.
Definitely. I talk to schools. I just try to be out there as much as I can. I hope I didn't get too far from the question.
I was asking you. I was talking about networking. Well, really, I was leading towards tips to for producers to kind of break that introverted shell.
You just gotta do it. You gotta talk more than you feel comfortable talking sometimes. Closed mouth doesn't get fed. Yeah. A lot of times, just in conversation, artists will tell you what they're looking for. They may be short of an engineer. Yeah. How I got with Thug just so happens that a friend of mine who was working with him prior to me, he started catching work more so on the West Coast, and Thug liked working on the East Coast. And because his engineer at the time and I came up around the same time, and a lot of tips and tricks that we do today, we shared with each other. It was easy.
I want to ask that follow-up question because one of our guys that's on the team, D Sims, he works with Thug a little bit too. And one of the things he talks about at the seminars, when we do our Pro Tools seminars, is that Thug likes fast work. Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Now, Thug, if we could teach a crash course in engineering, he would be the guy to use. Just the speed that you have to have as an engineer to work for him is crazy. Like he doesn't write, and he's a puncher. So he says a line, stops, next line. But what's so interesting about Thug has about 5 different techniques of how he records. So just depending on the beat, he might go and do a scratch track where he just hums out the melody. And then also his punching method, he can come in off of the breath of the last word. I've never experienced anybody that can do that. And for like example, you could say, let's say this Coke can on the "and" of the word he can punch in.
Oh, wow.
Most people need a pre-roll or some rhythm. He can be drinking, smoking, doing whatever he's doing. He can come in right on point each time. So, but he's very demanding of what he wants, and he knows what he wants.
That's what's up. So I guess one thing I definitely want to ask you about while we're recording is definitely the Grammy nominations. The Grammys just first of all, did you watch the Grammys?
I caught the tail end. I seen that Bruno Mars was racking up. I did catch that part.
What were your just overall impressions, just from an engineering standpoint and watching, people who may not normally get the big credit throughout the year, like, hey, this is your time to be acknowledged?
Yeah, I really was paying attention to what the Migos were doing because of the magnitude of the records that they've been dropping. And also, I have a lot of friends with invested interest in what they're doing. I have a few producers that got some credits on on that album. And just seeing what they're doing on the charts, I really wanted to see how the world would take their presence as a formidable rap group. So I really paid attention to the Migos, although they didn't win. I think they should have taken at least rap group or something.
Most def. So can you talk about your own Grammy nominations?
Okay. My first Grammy nomination was with R&B Divas, and that consisted of Faith Evans, Nikki Gilbert, Kiki Wyatt, Selena Johnson, and Monifa.
That's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, and we had all 5 of those women, strong personalities, great women to work with, and we did the record. It took us maybe I think a week to get everything laid because of scheduling.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know that they were shooting this, that we were recording this song as the pilot song for a reality show that they were getting ready to release, R&B Divas.
Oh, okay.
And it became the actual theme song to the show.
Oh, that's crazy.
So that was a pretty good experience. And then the second nomination was with Anderson .Paak. Never met him before, other than I knew of him through the Dr. Dre NWA soundtrack.
Okay.
And he came to Patchwerk, and he said he wanted to do something different that day. And we pulled up a session, and I think the first record was Seasons. And midway, he got of the session, he said, you know what, I want to merge 2 records together. Yeah. So that was my first time taking 2 sessions and blending them to make one. So basically had to do a tempo grid and bring in a whole nother beat and just do the morph for the 2 records. So it was 2 sessions. If you go to my IG page, Stafa_13, I even have a clip of where I show the session where you can see 2 sessions in one.
I'm going to check that out because that's juicy, nerdy stuff right there. So you have to like automate the BPM and stuff?
Yeah, I had because it did a slow down transition, so that was kind of tricky, but we got it to work.
That's dope, man.
Have you ever gotten a placement for like a producer friend of yours by being with a big client and having a chance, opportunity to pull up a beat?
Mm-hmm. With my cousin Ricky Rax, he did records like Best Friend for Young Thug and Peekaboo for Migos and Yachty and a few other records. But I was in a session with DJ Holiday, and I guess the client he was working with was running behind and had some downtime, so I figured instead of sitting in the room quiet with the DJ, I'd play some beats. So I pulled up Ricky Rax, a pack that he sent for me. I just started playing beats. I played maybe about 3 beats in before Holiday told me to stop. And I'm thinking he's not liking the records. And he immediately was like, who is this kid? Where are these beats coming from? He said, get him on the phone. I want to sign him.
That's what's up.
And he got him on the phone, and he asked him how soon he could be here. He said, probably in a week. And he said, well, when you come down, holler at me. I want to sign you.
Did they ever ink an agreement?
Mm-hmm, they did.
Wow.
I think he worked with them for about a year. Then he went over to Defiant with Be Rich. And then around that time, I had met some people that were taking over DARP, and they were looking for some producers. So I brought him over there, and they signed him as an in-house producer over there. And that's where he met T.I. and Young Thug. And then just to go back on networking, as time would have it, and he built his relationships up with clients, he would call me for sessions.
Yeah.
So the first time I worked with T.I. was through him.
There's a little bit of game for you guys.
I was going to say, for all the producers listening.
Yeah, like, listen, man, it's the power of relationships, right? One, if somebody gives you a layup, make sure you remember them, in your travels. That's one. And two, just understand the power of relationships and know the resources, right? So like, and I was telling Dylan this, about every 3-4 months, I hit up Stafa like, yo, you still keeping beats on file? Yeah, I send Stafa 3-4 beats, right? Because I know that's something that he does. If I've established a rapport with him, you never know, what could happen. So, keep your relationship game tight.
And that's a fun thing to do, to send a text message to one of your friends or producer and say, Gucci's rapping on your track right now.
That's what's up.
That's good
That's
news.
what's up.
That's definitely good news. So producers, man, all you producers out there, become friends with engineers, looking to network with engineers. Would you ever consider like, charging as a service? Like, hey, I got a big session coming up with such and such. If you want me to play a beat and I think it's hard, send me X amount of dollars.
It goes back to relationships. If it's very important to take into account of how you reach out to someone. If you reach out to someone with just gimme, you kind of get pushed back to back burner. And I'm real, like I said, just like artists, I'm real big on vibe. So I like to meet people before I go handing you off to other people, because I take my relationships very seriously that I built with folks, and I don't want to send anybody to someone that's going to cause a problem.
For sure.
So I make sure I do my own filtering. When I actually listen to the beats that people send, because my ear is that important to me. I don't want to play something that I know an artist isn't going to like, and then when I have something I can play that I know they're going to like, they don't want to hear what I got, because the last few times I played some stuff that was just whack.
You burnt the bridge.
Right.
I also I have a few A&Rs that are contacting me now, because they see that I'm very active with producers. So a lot of A&Rs call me directly looking for records. And I have no problem sending things over. Just give me your name. And also, for producers, try not to send zip files if you can.
With a bunch of beats.
Yeah, don't do that. And the reason is because a lot of these artists are grabbed from all kind of places and aren't so computer savvy. So
or they just want to hear it on their phone. You can't unzip it on your phone.
Exactly. They just want to hear it right then and there. And a lot of times, if they can't get to it quick, frustration set in, they'll go to somebody that can quickly access and play, and then you might have lost that opportunity. And also, a lot of times with zips, people send way too many beats. And that a lot of times that can give you the whack category.
50 pack.
Yeah, as they start going through after the first 5, they don't hear nothing, you may not ever get a chance to play anything else.
Yeah.
So send your best stuff, maybe 3 or 4 tracks, and get in, get out.
Is it better for a link or better for a file?
Better for a file. Just send the MP3. Just send the MP3 or Wave, just make it or send it directly to the phone. And the sooner we can play it, the sooner. Because a lot of times artists will come to a session, they'll book it and may not have any beats, which is more often than not. They'll be in there waiting for one of their producers to send some stuff, and their producer might be off working with someone else and can't do it right then.
Yeah.
So if you already have something playing, I think I did it with Dolph. I did it with a few artists. Had records already playing or beats playing when they come in. So they already bobbing. What's that? Load
That's
it up.
What's up. Yeah, so we got an Instagram question. Shout out to Rio the Beat Monster. His question is, what is the most efficient way to market your music?
Market your music, man. Contact artists is as much as you can. A lot of times, if you can get a relationship with artists, they'll put you in seats a lot more than their managers or anybody else can. I know with my engineering and me working with Thug, it was Thug's choice of having me there as opposed to of a label saying, we want you to work this project. It was Thug's adamant request for me saying that I like to work with this guy. So,
and that was the Jeffrey?
That was for Slime Season 3, I'm Up. And I recorded a few songs on Jeffrey, but I think when it got down to being pressed up for mixing and the full mastering, they sent it to Alex and they changed the names of the songs. So a lot of the songs on Jeffrey aren't the original titles of the records. But yeah, with producers, just try to do. There's so many avenues of how you can stay on top of artists. I say, if you can pull up to a studio and you build that rapport, pull up at a studio. It's a whole lot better than sending an email. I know Zaytoven, to this day, he still pulls up to sessions. Yeah. And he'll make a beat on the spot. And if he can do that, there's no reason why you as a starting out producer or whatever shouldn't try it. Book sessions. Find out where artists work. A lot of times during like when Walker's working at Patchwerk, we had a few producers that would book the 1019 when we had. I'll say, open the door, play the beats, just have the beats playing. Go to the bathroom, like move around. But you got to be where the artists are.
Yeah.
But don't be a weirdo though.
Don't be don't be the creepy guy.
Yeah.
We got any other good IG questions?
Somebody had asked, which is, what's the difference between how your money is made? And I got to be, because I know the answer to some of these questions, but I know some people don't. What's the difference between how your money is made as a producer versus how your money is made as an engineer?
With engineering, I'm more of a work for hire. So I get paid for that day, that time. There are engineers that get producer credits where you get, you can negotiate a point. But just know that everything's negotiable.
Okay.
So a lot of times as engineers, we're really making the song, the breaks, the effects.
That's what I was gonna say. A lot of the vocal skips, like that's creative. Once you put creative input into a record, I feel like you're kind of entitled to like some songwriting credit type of thing.
And surprisingly, that's a big thing in Atlanta. When I met Birdman, he was saying the difference between a lot of Atlanta engineers as opposed to engineers from other places. It says that that engineers in Atlanta actually make the song.
That's facts.
As opposed to artists just recording it and you go out, you print, and then it goes to CD.
Right.
A lot of us do the chops, the breaks, the action of the record comes from us.
On the spot too.
When y'all started doing that stuff, I was in Chicago working with a lot of artists back in 09, 010, and we hearing those records, like we're at studios like, yo, can you do this? And they don't know. Like they had to learn because, what was happening down here. I know Kai Engineering has been known a lot for doing that kind of stuff too, as far as the stutters, the rolls, and that kind of stuff.
K. Shout out to KY.
I'm sorry, did I say his name? Is KY?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
He's out of Kentucky. But I did a lot of assisting sessions with him. And before I met him, I was a fan of his work and didn't know who he was. I heard a lot of Waka stuff and Slim Duncan. And when I finally got to meet him and come to find out that he was the guy I was emulating my chops and breaks and stuff from. Yeah. Because I was liking what he's doing. So I got to actually talk to him and I was like, how do you decide what break you're gonna do, what chop you're gonna do? And he says that it's all artist based. So he tries to find some key point that an artist does and try to enhance that. So like with Slim Duncan, when he was around, there was, if you listen to his old records, there would always be a forced stutter on the drum. Whenever Dunk did his ad-lib, he'd come in and go dunk, dunk, dunk. And the beat would do exactly that, dunk, 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 before he would start rapping. And then you probably can notice it more on what he's done with 2 Chainz. Like when 2 Chainz would do the long drawn out trues and there was a flanger effect. Yeah. He made sure that he only did that with 2 Chainz and not with Rick Ross and other people he worked with.
Gems.
Signature thing.
Yeah, so he's making your signature sound or to just have that insight as an engineer to say, I'm going to create something special for you. And it also creates job security.
Yeah.
Because if you're the guy that's creating that sound, he's going to always have to work with you. Just like with Travis Scott and his ad-libs. There's a certain way that they treat his ad-libs to where that engineer is going to stay his engineer.
That's what's up. I just got goosebumps, bro.
I got a good question. It's kind of off track, but how often do you get tipped as an engineer? And what are your thoughts? Do you feel I feel engineers should be tipped more. I've never seen an engineer get tipped at the end of a session, honestly.
I got a real good tip.
That's a good question.
From Doug. I mean, Doug threw me about 500 one night just cause. It varies just depending on the nature of the artist you're working with. It's not that often. If they think you're not making money, they'll tip you. So a lot of interns get a lot of tips. But as you kind of get seasoned in the business, tips come a little bit shorter.
Do they tip you, let them smoke in the studio?
That's been asked. Like how much can we pay to just smoke in the studio? But at Patchwerk, they normally frown upon that. So
I'm
also
sure
with equipment.
I'm sure everything's negotiable though.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, we was there over the summer working with kids, and so the first time I went to Patchwerk, it was a smoke friendly environment. Then you walk in with kids, like, whoo, the cushion's coming out the walls. So it's like you get a little more sensitive to that. Yeah. I wanted to. You had mentioned Alex Toumé's name a minute ago, and Patchwerk at this point, from where I stand, is like legend and lore around here. So a lot of people are starting to know your guys' name names, you know, far and wide. And so I know Alex Toomey is a name that I've heard before, and kind of one of the names when I was learning about what happens at Patchwerk, right? So I wanted you to talk about a little bit, one, if you could talk about kind of some of those staff names at Patchwerk, but then also just kind of talk about the difference between you know, being a tracking engineer versus being a mixing engineer versus being a mastering engineer.
Okay. Shout out to all the engineers at Patchwerk and worldwide. But you have tracking engineers, mixing engineers, and mastering engineers. Tracking consists of the recording and putting everything on the tape or whatever DAW you're using, whether it be Pro Tools, Logic, or whatever you're using. That's the whole recording process of actually recording, laying the records down. The mixing is mainly balancing, to making sure everything plays, you're hearing everything clearly, nothing's getting in the way frequency-wise. And then the mastering is the last step of the process, which is actually where they get the leveling to be commercially ready for release. That's what you hear a lot of them CDs. With mastering, the rule of thumb is you have to have 12 years experience as an engineer to be considered a true mastering engineer.
Wow.
A lot of the mastering you hear now is volume optimization. So basically, they give you all these plugins to basically make your music loud, but it's more science to it, to mastering. It deals with time alignment, and that deals with frequencies that come out at different times out of the speaker. So when you turn it up in a club, your vocals don't get smeared. A lot of times people will wonder why their sound sounds different from a Jeezy album or whatever when they play it in the club. It's because it hasn't been mastered correctly. And that deals with time alignment, where the low frequencies come out a little bit quicker than the next frequency band, and so on and so on. But it's very minute timing.
If you were an artist, you know, coming to Atlanta to, you know, propel your career, and you were working under a certain budget, would you say recording in SSL gear is, you know, worth that initial investment, or would you say really just kind of that's secondary?
I would say you would practice first, because when you get to that studio and you start spending money, it's a whole lot easier to not see the benefit of being in the studio. You'll talk yourself into saying, I can do this at home.
Right. I'm spending all this money.
Yeah. And the thing is, you haven't trained your ear to know what sounds good yet. Because there are songs, not to knock any particular artist, but quality on the radio isn't at best. So people are really starting to lose what sounds good. They're starting to lose the reference of what sounds good. So a lot of kids, a lot of new guys think they can get it done on a laptop, and then you're seeing main artists starting to record in hotels and things like that.
Right, for sure.
But me having my ear, I can tell when I hear a Nicki Minaj verse and she did it at a closet or at somebody's house, and these are records that are going out and getting awards. So, I mean, you just got to take it with a grain of salt. Like, whatever you can make work for you, make it work, but keep in mind, the artists like Jay-Z and the Jeezys and the Beyoncés are still going to these studios, and they're going to beat you off of quality alone. Quality is what'll keep a person playing your record, even when it's a bad song.
And the thing is, one thing I found interesting when I first pulled up, I think the first time I went to Patchwerk was actually my first Producergrind event last year, and you know, as soon as I walked in the door, she gave me a whole packet of information. The person that was sitting at the door, I can't remember her name. She gave me a whole packet of information. And when I started thumbing through these resources, I realized it's here for you. You don't have to be a millionaire. They got credit programs. They got pay as you go. They got layaway. They will show you how to do everything from record your music to promote it to selling it in the whole nine. So, you know, the resources are out there, especially at a place like Patchwerk. Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
her name is actually Lisa. She deals with the Patchwerk sales, and she has a pamphlet that pretty much covers everything you need as an artist starting out. And as far as the people you need to contact, the royalties, how you get paid. They have a distribution thing that they're doing out there at Patchwerk. Where they handle all the middleman stuff. They're very open with it. You can get your coding for your mastered songs. Coding is how you get paid. So make sure that you ask about coding, ISRC codes, and there's one other code. But there's 2 codes that you need to make sure that you get paid for your music when it gets spun. When it gets spun, because as soon as you post a record on YouTube or SoundCloud without the codes, those formats code your music. So if one of those songs happens to blow, best believe SoundCloud is getting a cut, or YouTube or whoever you posted your music.
You dropping a lot of game right now, bro.
For sure.
All right, we got another Instagram question. This one is coming from, let's see. Actually, this is a good mixed question. From Samar Bahia 11. He says, if I have 2 sounds around the same frequency levels, how can I make each of them stand out? I said it again because I had my mouth away from the mic. Samar Bahia 11. If I have 2 sounds around the same frequency levels, how can I make each of them stand out?
Okay. There's a few ways you can do it. You can pan them apart from each other. You can do an EQ suite to find where those frequencies or where those instruments clash the most, and then dip one on one particular sound and boost it on the other. Also, you can add there's certain distortion plugins you can add to give certain sounds more weight to kind of change the tone and timbre of the sounds as they play together. A lot of times, learn this in school, you don't want more than 5 instruments as far as melody going for the most part at the same time. So if you have instruments that are playing similar chords or similar parts of the record, see if you can alternate one or the other. That a lot of times that'll give the mix more movement, and you'll create what's the word I'm looking for? You'll create a anticipation for the new change or whatever. So things like that. Unless those sounds combined create a sound. Sometimes you can mix a few different instruments and it'll create an actual sound that you don't want to change or whatever. So just knowing having a good end game and knowing what you want to do to make those sounds heard and how important they are in the record.
That's dope sauce right there. That's like a lot of good sauce right there, bro. Like people that don't just give that up that easy. Saturday night, man, I was on IG and I saw you at the Scotty ATL video shoot, man. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I just check my phone sometimes and I'll have a schedule that I didn't even know about. It just so happens I work with a client by the name of Intrigue, and he has a company that he's pushing Radio Ready. And he's very prominent out here as far as open mics and things of that nature. So if you're an artist looking for things like that, look up Intrigue, Radio Ready. He's a good guy to contact and talk to. But he gave me the insight. He said Scotty ATL was doing a video shoot out at Metropolitan and pretty much just told me to pull up. And I've met Scotty a few times at Patchwerk. And he's a new artist. Didn't work on the record he was shooting, but yeah, that was a Saturday night, I believe. And those are good networking things to go to too. Because a lot of times those are cameramen. You never know what you need or what to be around at these these video shoots. And a lot of times they'll have entourages. A lot of times I've met the future artists through those entourages. So like when I was working with Thug, I met Gunna and I was able to do his mixtape, and I was able to do Duke's mixtape Uberman.
Okay.
Just off of making a relationship with those guys and being at video shoots and things like that. So I took it as a networking opportunity.
Sure.
So in the position that you sit in, you get a chance to hear and see from a lot of talented folks before the rest of us as the general public do. Is there anybody we should be looking out for right now?
There's a guy by the name of Oso that I'm paying attention to.
Oso?
He's out of Atlanta. There's a guy by the name of Blocboy JB.
Memphis, right?
Yeah, and I caught wind of him actually through a Moneybagg Yo session, and that was interesting to see because Moneybagg Yo has a cousin or something that travels with him, and he was playing a Blocboy JB record, and I happened to look over to see what it was. I'm like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
I like this guy is gonna catch some attention. And just so happened, I was on World Star yesterday and happened to see that Drake got a song with him.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah, so I'm paying attention to that guy because I like him. He has his drums have a old but new feel to him.
Okay.
So I'm more so a sound guy. So when the sound changes, I kind of pay attention to that. Like when Mustard dropped, it's like, oh, that's different, but it's old too. So
I noticed a lot right before Tee Grizzley dropped. I was seeing him all over Patchwerk.
I worked with him a few times.
Yeah, can you talk about that? Because I remember when you talk about new sound, I just remember when he dropped, it was just so different from everything else that was coming out. And I was a huge fan immediately. Like everything you hear seemed like I hear of his I really like. Can you talk about working with him?
The best thing about Tee Grizzley, I didn't know anything about him that day. I didn't know who he was in the room. But I know with him, he has a different style because he writes, his rhymes are already written.
Right.
So he kind of formats his verses to the beat. And if you actually listen to his style, you can tell he's not really on he's not really on that beat. And I think that's what creates the draw to his style.
Yeah.
And he's a young guy, real humble, real cool to work with. It was him, a guy by the name of RJ, Kamaya, she's real big, Midwest, and YG was here. So I got to work with Tee Grizzley for about a week. Yeah. And we did a few records. I can't remember the names off top, but yeah, I worked with him, Lil Durk.
And see, and the other thing I want to ask about that too is just, kind of that Midwest recording style versus the Atlanta recording style. Because you were talking a minute ago about, okay, you starting to spend your money to get in this studio. One thing I noticed immediately when I got to Atlanta, because I work with a trap artist from Macon, is he would have me get on the board and do his tracking, right? And then, we were recording as we got to know each other. Finally, after 2 weeks, he just said, listen, man, if it's okay with you, I want to punch in everything. And I was like, one line at a time. He's like, yeah. And, with my experience in Chicago, that kind of blew me because Chicago was like, yo, we paying money to be here. You better have everything ready to go. When you get here, you better go front to back. So can you just talk about the difference between, like, you kind of those local recording styles? Because you see a lot of people from all over the country.
Yeah, I noticed the difference when you have collabs done. So you may get an artist from another area, and they'll come in and see the whole style of how Atlanta records. Quiet as kept, really Sean Garrett should get the crown for that.
Ooh,
because Sean Garrett, as the story goes, Sean Garrett was doing a record with Gucci, and Sean Garrett doesn't write. So Sean Garrett, did his scat thing he does to figure out his writing style. Mm-hmm. So Gucci caught on to how he did it, and he started doing the punching. And so as time would have it, Waka seen it, and Waka started doing it. So he's doing the punch method. And then he happened to go down and do a feature with Rick Ross. Rick Ross seen the punch method. Rick Ross drops BMF. Rick Ross sound starts to change. Yeah. And you start hearing it. Like you start noticing when people are writing and when they're not. It's just like a freedom you can hear between lines.
Sounds a little more natural when they punch.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, because I was an artist, this is what I try to, little tidbit I give artists that are writing. If you are a writer and you recite your rhymes, rap them out loud. A lot of times people write their rhymes and they whisper their rhymes. So what's happening when you do that, you have a full breath of air. So when it comes time to recite it, you're like, well, how did I say this? Or why am I running out of breath right here? Because you're not practicing how you're going to perform it. So a lot of times why punching artists sound better is because they have a full breath each line. They're able to articulate better as opposed to you know what I'm saying? So and I caught wind of that early with T.I. When I was listening to I'm Serious, I'm like, how is he rapping and rapping over himself at the same time at the end of the lines and punching?
Facts.
That's facts. That's a lot of jewels you just dropped right there. Not only because of the history in it, but you kind of starting to reveal why the art and the culture changes, right? Because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of artists like Black or Childish Major, or guys who are they walk that fine line between singing and rapping. And that's one of the reasons that can really flourish. And I think the word you used was freedom, you know?
That frees them from the lines. Sometimes those lines can lock you into what a certain particular rhythm or a certain rhyme, but just going off the top, you can just hear what the music does.
Catch the vibe, right?
Catch the vibe of it and do exactly what maybe the flute or whatever background instrument is doing. And a lot of times I notice that's what Thug and a lot of these more melodic guys do. They find out the main instrument and they kind of mimic that.
Remember that when you're making your beats too, man. For real. So before we get out of here, man, there's a couple things I want to ask you about. Coming back to this IG thing, man, your IG is lit, bro. You had a picture of, it looked like a case and some Hennessy Paradise. Am I saying that right? Can you talk about that bottle a little bit? Because that was impressive.
Well, that wasn't really my bottle. That's a friend of mine. They own Medusa Lounge, but they have a artist which goes back to relationships. Long before they had that, I was working with an artist of theirs by the name of Song for the last few years, and as time would have it, these guys acquired Medusa Lounge, so I got pretty much free access to go whenever I want to go, and
that's what's up.
And that's just off of networking and working with people and keeping a good relationship. So whenever they do anything, I try to show love on my Instagram page. A lot of times, just a little gesture of I'm paying attention and I like that is all you need, and people will rock with you a long way.
Mm-hmm.
I had one guy. All I did was share that he had a release coming out. And it stemmed to a lot more work with him because he said some of his friends wouldn't even share that, and as soon as he told me, I shared it. You know, so you never know how you touching people, and I try to make sure my how I treat majors and independents is the same. If Waka call me or Joe Smo call me, my rate will not change unless I'm doing a mix. So I try to keep it that way so I can't put anybody's value over the next person.
I could definitely speak to that because one thing I know, before I had a chance to get to know you, like I said, many people had told me to holler at you, but I just started paying attention to what you was doing. And before I even wanted to be like, yo, can I do this or can I do that? I was just like, yo, the stuff you do is just dope. You know what I'm saying? I think, were you biking last year?
No, I was more so running. I was out there at Piedmont Park early in the mornings and just trying to, in summertime, I'll be back out there. I'll invite people to just come out and do things with me. And one time at Patchwerk, I opened up the doors of the studio for 8 hours.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he was like, "Yo, hit me on DM. If I hit you back, pull up."
Yeah, and that was pretty amazing for me because I didn't know that many people paid attention.
Yeah.
So I knew I was gonna book Patchwerk maybe a week prior, and I just said, you know what. Anybody that sees this Instagram post, pull up. And I did that with maybe 2 hours out of a heads up. And we had close to 80 to 100 people showing up.
Damn, in the room. That's dope.
And so how we set it up, you can go to my IG page, you can see that too. I have behind the scenes footage of that as well. But so
was it just kind of like a big listening party kind of thing?
No, I wanted people to see how I work. Because like I said, I'm an artist, and I'm very active as an artist. But I want to just to show people how you can maximize your time.
Yeah.
So what I did, once I got to see all of the people that showed up, I had producers in our upstairs lounge. So I had them plugged up to our main speakers upstairs. So they're working on beats. So while they're working on beats and collabing and doing what they do, I'd have songwriters in the corner writing to the actual record. And then while that's going on, we would have an artist in the booth recording to another record. So it was like an assembly line.
Yeah.
And whenever the producers got done, whoever had the dopest hook or whatever, put this hook on that. Who has a verse finished, put that on there. We just making collabs and just had it going around like assembly line.
Yeah, music factory.
And a lot of relationships were built off of those. I did it twice. A lot of relationships were built off of those. There was a producer by the name of Jay Dilla. I mean, not Jay Dilla, Dilla Beats. And there was another producer, I think Symphony, I don't want to mess his name up, but those two guys got together and made something crazy that night. and Rocco's son Uno happened to be there, and he grabbed up Dilla and that guy and created his mixtape.
That's dope.
So
that's dope.
You just never know what'll happen just off of opening doors and just giving people access to what
they normally wouldn't have.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do.
Power of networking. Sure.
Hell yeah. All right. So my last question. Lastly, the thing I always try to do is to, make sure we're driving business towards our guest's way. But I know your phone stay ringing. So my question is, do I have to be a Young Thug or a Gucci Man to have Stafa in my session?
No, you do not. I work, like I said, I work with independents, majors. You can hit me up on Stafa_13 on Instagram. You can DM me. You can hit me at my email, stafamusic@gmail.com, or you can just call me. My number isn't private. It's 252-714-4984. I answer all calls. I prefer text messages. Also, I have a promotional thing that I'm doing where if you have or know of anybody that's an artist, if you book it, we're paying you $100 to book it. So what I'm doing is employing my social media to really reach out to other artists that you know. So even if you're not an artist yourself, you're not a producer, if you know anyone that does music, you can book it through me, and we'll send you $100 for the booking.
The Stafa, what's the word? The Stafa
affiliate program. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
So I try to incorporate as many people as I can in what I do. And it's very simple. You book it. As soon as the mix is done, we cash app it or however we need to do it.
That's what's up.
And I really like that too, because there are people who, really want to be in the game, and they may not be a producer, they may not be an engineer or artist, but there are people who have a talent for connecting dots. So that's really dope, man. Thank you very much.
Who knows, you might get into management or something off of that.
That's what's I mean, real talk though. Real talk. So yeah. Hey fam, we appreciate you for you coming on the show, and appreciate you dropping that knowledge.
Definitely, man. Definitely appreciate you pulling up, bro.
And feel free to hit me up in my emails or IG for any questions that we didn't cover. Like I said, I'm open book. I have no secrets, so hit me up.
For sure, man.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. It's another episode in the books, man. Catch us next week. Peace.
There it is.